Vice President Mike Pence makes a campaign stop in Columbus. This as we inch closer and closer to Election Day. The fight over ballot drop boxes continues. We go over the back and forth in the courts and where the issue stands right now. Plus, hear from a voter who says she got a letter saying she couldn't cast her ballot because she's dead. What led up to that mistake? Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Karina Nova. If you're wondering if Ohio is still important in the race for the White House, well, take a look at this map. Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden stopped in Toledo and Cincinnati all in one day this week. That same day, current Vice President Mike Pence stopped in Columbus to drum up support for his ticket as well. 10 TV's Lacey Crisp was there.
And every single day, President Donald Trump has stood with the men and women who serve on the thin blue line of law enforcement, and we always will.
Vice President Mike Pence invited the Fraternal Order of Police to be his guests at Monday's rally at SAFCO in Columbus.
The Trump campaign asked us to come out, be a part of this. He's the national FOP endorsed candidate by police officers all across the country. Wanted us to be a part of this, gave us the opportunity to be here. We want to show our support, and we want to see the public that supports us.
I feel like President Trump and Mike Pence are just here for the people, for everybody, and not just one specific group of people.
Pence boasted about how the administration's tax cuts had created jobs before the pandemic.
I mean, after losing 22 million jobs at the height of this pandemic, I'm proud to report to you that we've already seen 11.5 million Americans go back to work, including more than 400,000 people right here in the state of Ohio.
A sentiment that didn't sit well with some in the crowd. A handful of people interrupted Pence and were removed from the audience, including Chucky Dennison, a laid-off Lordstown worker.
They bought into his fake populism, and the fact is, why they go around tout about jobs and Lordstown booming, it's a complete lie.
But Pence's biggest applause came when he spoke about the nomination to Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett.
And the ranking Democrat on the Judiciary Committee said Judge Barrett's Catholic faith was of concern and said, quote, "The dogma lives loudly within you." Well, I got news for the Democrats and their friends in Hollywood. That dogma lives loudly in me. That dogma lives loudly in you.
I support the ticket 100%. I love what they stand for freedoms, for religion, for the unborn, for everything.
That we're going to maintain some of our civil liberties. Our liberties are being stripped from us on a regular basis.
And Pence joked to the crowd they should go out and vote. In fact, they should leave right here and go to the Board of Elections. And he says, friends, don't let friends vote alone. In Columbus, Lacey Crisp, 10 TV News.
Vice President Pence spoke at Savco and Sons, and we've seen campaigns there before. Former President Barack Obama delivered remarks there 10 years ago. He talked about economic recovery and redevelopment near Nationwide Children's Hospital. We mentioned Joe Biden visited Toledo and Cincinnati this week. Well, while he was in Toledo, our sister station in Toledo did a one-on-one interview with him, and much of the focus was centered around jobs.
You're going to start seeing cops being laid off, firefighters being laid off, school teachers being laid off. Why? Because you have to balance the budget. And this president spent more time in his sand traps and his golf courses rather than calling the Congress together to get something done.
It looks like it's a tight race in Ohio. A recent Baldwin-Wallace University Great Lakes poll has President Trump leading Joe Biden 47 to 45%. That is an improvement for President Trump. The last BW poll released September 24th showed the two in a virtual tie. During this election season, there's a lot of misinformation online. 10 TV's Tracy Townsend and our Verify team are looking into one of those claims.
Did Dr. Anthony Fauci endorse President Trump and praise his handling of COVID-19? That's what a political ad seems to say. But Dr. Fauci is pushing back. We had our Verify team look into what really happened. Here's Jason Puckett.
We're talking about a new political ad put out by Donald Trump's campaign this week. It talks about the president's handling of the coronavirus pandemic and then has a quote from Dr. Anthony Fauci. Here's a short clip.
President Trump tackled the virus head-on, as leaders should.
I can't imagine that anybody could be doing more.
Since this ad came out, Dr. Fauci has talked to multiple news outlets saying he's being misrepresented in this ad. So let's verify. Did Dr. Fauci say he couldn't imagine anybody doing more than President Trump like this ad implies? Our main source is an interview from Fox News in March. Dr. Fauci is asked about the coronavirus task force that he's a part of. Let's watch a clip.
Tom, I'm down at the White House virtually every day with the task force. I'm connected by phone throughout the day and into the night. When I say night, I'm talking 12, 1, 2 in the morning. I'm not the only one. There's a whole group of us that are doing that. It's every single day. So I can't imagine that under any circumstances that anybody could be doing more.
So Dr. Fauci is specifically talking about the coronavirus task force, not President Trump. But the political ad edited the statement and put it right next to the president. From the original clip and its context, we can verify the claim that Dr. Fauci said the statement about President Trump is false. Dr. Fauci has worked with 6 U.S. presidents, and he's never endorsed one or actively participated in a campaign ad before. Will they verify? I'm Jason Puckett.
The Senate Judiciary Committee held its 4th and final day of hearings for the Supreme Court nomination on Thursday.
Precedent is clear for a long, long time that if the President and Senate are of the same party, the Senate, in all but extraordinary circumstances, confirms that nominee.
You're just trying to ram through this justice against your own words in light of everything this president has said, where he won't even commit to a peaceful transition of power.
After a vote by the Republican-led panel, the Judiciary Committee officially scheduled a vote to approve Judge Amy Coney Barrett's nomination for this coming Thursday. After that, it'll be sent to the Senate floor for a vote. Republicans are pushing Barrett's nomination through just before the election. The full Senate is expected to vote on Barrett's nomination by the end of the month. Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor, the first woman to lead the Ohio judicial branch, continues her focus on justice reform. During her 9-year tenure on the state's high court, she's been out front in our state and on the national stage on issues including racial justice, attorney representation for the poor, and sentencing fairness. Chief Justice O'Connor is featured in our Take 10 segment this week, talking about the need for criminal justice reform at all levels.
And when I say improve our systems, I'm not just pointing a finger at police or the court system or the criminal justice, maybe incarceration, etc. I'm talking about the whole system. But there are certain factors that a judge is mandated by statute to take into consideration as to why they reach one sentence for one defendant and another sentence for another defendant that might be charged with the exact same crime.
And you can watch the entire Take 10 segment with Chief Justice O'Connor on Monday at 10tv.com. Well, it's no secret Ohio has had some issues with ballots this year, but imagine not getting one because you were told you were considered dead. We'll hear from someone who had this happen next. And a spike in COVID-19 cases led to the governor telling Ohioans they need to do better. We'll hear what he had to say coming up.
10TV wants to make sure your vote counts come November. Here are some best practices for casting an absentee ballot this year. Double check the information on your form. Review your ballot request and your ballot to ensure you filled it out right. It might sound silly, but voters do sometimes write the wrong date or identifying information and forget to sign the form. Include your email and or phone number. For the first time, boards of elections will be calling or emailing voters if they forgot something or need to fix something. Don't wait. Processing can take some time this year at the post office and at the boards of elections. And if you're concerned about your ballot getting where it needs to go, you can track it at voteohio.gov/track. To find more helpful information, text the word VOTE to 614-460-3345. You'll get all kinds of useful election links sent straight to your phone.
The Franklin County Board of Elections sent out 50,000 new absentee ballots after a technical glitch caused voters to get the wrong ballot. 10 TV sat down with the board's director to get an update on the situation and what's happening next.
Critical piece of the equipment was offline in terms of the portion of it that verifies that the correct ballot went into the correct envelope, that functionality was offline. We've resolved the equipment issue. We've tested the equipment repeatedly. We've established independent methods of verifying that the equipment is operating correctly so that we can make sure that the ballots that are going out are in fact correct.
The issue caught the attention of President Trump. He said this is evidence of a rigged election. And here's what the Franklin County Board of Elections director had to say about that.
It was a serious error, and we stated that, but we've taken the steps to correct it. And again, so I think, again, the fact that we've taken the steps to correct that error and make sure that every vote is counted once, and that every voter gets the correct ballot, that we've taken the steps to address it.
Now, it costs $69,000 to reprint the absentee ballots and send out the right ones. So where is that money coming from?
County general fund dollars that will go to pay for that in order to correct the mistake. The main thing is that we needed to get those ballots right out the door right away, and that's what we have to focus on.
10 TV looked into another voter issue. This week, a Columbus woman told us her voter registration was denied because she's dead. Reporter Kevin Landers explains how this all happened.
This doesn't make sense. I have gotten now 2 absentee ballots. I have done everything I'm supposed to do. And it was like, I was beyond speechless and shocked.
Kimberlyn Securo says she felt like she'd lost her right to vote this election.
And it makes me really emotional because of the fact that I know how important it is to vote, and it's our power. And so the fact that there was a brief moment where I thought, I might not be able to vote.
Her concern began when she received this notice from the Franklin County Board of Elections. It said she wasn't able to vote because she was dead.
So I opened the letter and it says, notice we got receipt from either the Ohio Secretary of State or I think it said Department of Health that you've died.
Securo says she called the Secretary of State's office and was told she was good to vote. Then she came to the early voting center to vote in person, and again, she got the all clear.
Came here as quickly as I could. I was encouraged to go ahead and vote. I didn't have any issue trying to vote. Thank God.
And that was Kevin Landers reporting. So how did this happen? The Franklin County Board of Elections blames a coding error that sent her a letter saying she was deceased. So far, it's the first the board has heard of this issue. Voters are already casting their ballots here in Ohio and across the country, but poll workers are facing some unique challenges this election. 10 TV's Brittany Bailey digs into their de-escalation training.
It is a different election than we've ever seen.
Brian Mead is the director of the Licking County Board of Elections and has been training poll workers for this unprecedented election.
It is definitely intense. You can feel it in the air. You can see it on your social media, talking with people. People are energized but also scared, all in one.
Voters can be very passionate about candidates and issues.
The Secretary of State created this de-escalation training video to help workers deal with the challenges of voters refusing to wear masks or breaking campaign clothing rules.
This person is agitated, yelling, saying this is disenfranchisement or voter suppression. Do all you can to calm down the voter.
We just tell them, you really need to just calm down, treat everybody as your friend. You got to realize they're going to come in here and a lot of voters haven't voted for 4 years, and just reason with them and make sure they have a good, pleasant experience.
And they're prepared for any poll watchers who might show up, and they've had them before. Brittany Bailey, 10 TV News.
That de-escalation video from the Secretary of State is included in the 4-part training for poll workers. The other categories focus on PPE and personal safety, voting setup, and reverting to paper signature poll books. Tracy?
Columbus voters have 2 issues on the ballot for consideration, both aimed at your home and safety. First, There's issue 1, which, if passed, would establish an electric service aggregation program. Columbus voters in Franklin, Fairfield, and Delaware counties will vote yes or no on whether to allow the city to aggregate the retail electrical load of customers within the city's boundaries. City Council member Rob Doran says the Clean Energy Ballot Initiative is sort of like collective bargaining for buying electric power.
In essence, it's like when folks go to Costco. You know, when you buy in bulk, you tend to get a better price. So by utilizing community choice aggregation, you're allowing the city of Columbus to basically negotiate on your behalf. So we have 200,000 plus power customers here in Columbus. This will allow us to use that negotiating power to help give us a really competitive price on energy. But you know, it doesn't come with price. I think one of the big things that I'm really excited about with this ballot initiative is that issue 1, we've committed to moving Columbus towards a 100% renewable energy by 2022. This is the biggest opportunity we have to fight climate change here in our community.
Issue 2 creates a civilian police review board with authority to launch and carry out investigations of alleged police misconduct. The call for this board grew out of the social unrest and demonstrations that played out nationwide and, of course, right here in the streets of Columbus in the wake of the killing of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer. The Civilian Review Board would also subpoena testimony and evidence during the misconduct investigations, make recommendations to the Division of Police, and appoint and manage the new position of Inspector General for the Division of Police. Councilmember Doran says it's important to put this in the city charter.
We've unfortunately seen over and over in other cities that have initiated these types of reforms, you know, whether it's 10 or 20 years down the line, someone gets upset and they just cut the funding for the review board, or they just don't fill spots on it. So that's why we thought it was really important to enshrine this in our city's constitution to make sure that, you know, there's an adequate funding level, which is called out within the ballot language itself, that Inspector General's office is actually independent and transparent, which is called out in the charter language itself. So we think that this sets the foundation for a very effective civilian review board in our community.
And the drop boxes for ballots this year are stirring up some drama. Next, we get answers from Secretary of State Frank LaRose in response to the most asked questions about these boxes. Governor Mike DeWine had a lot to say at his Thursday press conference. The push to get Ohioans to follow the guidelines for COVID-19 coming up. Welcome back. This week we saw a spike in COVID-19 cases in Ohio, and on Thursday we saw our advisory map reflect that increase. 29 counties in Ohio are now listed in the red under the state's coronavirus alert system. That's 65% of the population. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine said in his press conference that 52 counties are high incidence, meaning the county has seen more than 100 cases per 100,000 residents during the past 2 weeks. And as you can see, that includes a few of the counties in central Ohio. During that press conference, the governor told Ohioans they need to do better when it comes to following guidelines. He says that's the way to get everything back to normal.
It's a pathway to do the things that we want to do. And if the virus continues to roar through Ohio, you know, we're not going to be able to do those things. As we see tests go up, we would expect to see some more cases. But what we really then have to look at is positivity. And what we should be seeing is a decrease in positivity as the testing goes dramatically up.
And you can check the latest case numbers on 10tv.com/coronavirus. Ohio Supreme Court nominees took to the virtual debate stage to make their case. The candidate forum included current Ohio Supreme Court Justice Sharon Kennedy and her challenger, Judge John O'Donnell of Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas. And incumbent Justice Judy French took on Judge Jennifer Bruner of the Ohio 10th District Court of Appeals. The four candidates spoke about issues ranging from judicial review to COVID-19.
Serving on the 10th District Court of Appeals, we immediately went to teleworking when the governor had the stay-in-place order. Personally, I prepared the protocol for our court on how to circulate decisions similar to how we've been circulating them before.
I think when the Ohio judiciary looks back on the pandemic, we are going to see that it was one of our finest hours. all over the state, I am seeing creativity and innovation in dealing with the issues related to COVID-19 and making sure that we have fewer people in our courtrooms, but that justice is still served.
And remember, we are just 16 days away from Election Day.
A complicated storyline of the election involves something simple: ballot boxes. Because of concerns about the mail, some Ohio voters have worried about their ballots arriving on time. So more people are calling for more ballot boxes. 10 TV's Kevin Landers explains why the issue became a huge political fight.
Safe and secure elections is what every voter wants, and for the first time, Ohio is allowing voters to drop off their absentee ballots at a secured drop box.
That's never been the case before in Ohio in the past for a general election.
At issue in this election is whether it's illegal for the Secretary of State to allow for more than one drop box beyond the Board of Elections. Some argue by not allowing more drop-off boxes, it makes it less convenient to drop off your absentee ballot, especially in Franklin County, where one drop-off box serves more than 1 million people.
I never restricted them from having multiple drop boxes at the Board of Elections.
LaRose has continuously stated adding more drop boxes rests with the legislature, not him. That statement set off a flurry of lawsuits.
These same folks that wanted to bring a lawsuit related to, expanding drop boxes for the first time in our state's history, where were they 6 months ago when we could have actually worked with the legislature to get that done?
The battle over ballot boxes spurred 4 lawsuits. The first one came nearly 2 months before Election Day. The first lawsuit was filed August 26th by the League of Women Voters and Ohio NAACP, arguing more drop boxes are needed to allow for the low-income and minorities to have a safe way to return their ballots. Next came Ohio Democrats, who filed a lawsuit on September 11th. They claimed additional drop boxes should be allocated based on population. On September 15th, Franklin County Judge Richard Fry rules against the Secretary of State, saying he does have the power to add more ballot boxes. The Secretary of State disagreed.
For me to do it just on my own, really days before early voting begins in Ohio, would be an irresponsible decision.
On September 21st, the Ohio Republican Party, looking for a favorable decision, appealed the judge's ruling. They get it. A judge reverses the earlier court ruling, saying the judge in the case overstepped his authority. On October 2nd, the 10th Court of Appeals rules state law does not prescribe nor prohibit LaRose from adding alternate locations for secure ballot drop boxes. Rather than allow more drop boxes, LaRose defers to the legislature to make the call.
If we want to make that change in Ohio, over in the legislature is the place to do that.
Meanwhile, there was another lawsuit, this one in Cleveland, where the Board of Elections wanted to put 6 ballot boxes at libraries. That case would be decided by a U.S. district judge. On October 6th, Judge Daniel Polster issued a ruling that contradicts what the Secretary of State had said all along. He rules that ballot drop boxes outside boards of elections are permitted at multiple locations within a county. But the Secretary of State's directive says drop boxes can only be, quote, outside the Board of Elections, meaning on board property. The next day, the Ohio Attorney General's office sends a letter to the Cuyahoga Board of Elections saying the judge got it wrong. Contrary to the court's statement in its order, the Secretary's recent directive, 2020-22, did not authorize the portion of the Cuyahoga County Board's plan to receive ballots at 6 public libraries. Directive 2020-22 simply cannot be read any other way. Meanwhile, Franklin County says it has no plans to add more drop boxes beyond those on its property. Kevin Landers, 10 TV News.
And we want to thank you all for being here with us today. Remember, if it affects you, your family, and Ohio, we're here to inform you and keep people accountable.